So good afternoon, everyone. I'll be talking about cyclodestructive procedures in glaucoma. And basically, the mechanism is suppressing the aqueous humor production by destroying the ciliary body epithelium. And since the epithelium has a tendency to regenerate, so one may require multiple sittings to achieve the desired IOP lowering effect, because the outcome is unpredictable, and also because there is a high risk of adverse effects like inflammation, and of course the very real risk of ocular hypotony and phthisis bulbi. So these procedures have traditionally been indicated for refractory glaucoma and eyes with a poor visual acuity or prognosis. So invariably, one will be doing it in patients with mostly secondary glaucomas, or patients with previous failed filtration or shunt surgeries or significant conjunctival scarring, where one may not, go in for invasive procedure because of the poor prognosis. Lately, however, we are having some new technologies whereby the indication is getting widened also into moderate glaucoma eyes, where the person has vision. The options that are available are diathermy, surgical excision, cryotherapy, but what is being prevalent in today's world is the diode laser cyclophotocoagulation, which is being done. So why the diode laser cyclophotocoagulation? Because this is a near infrared 810 nanometer wavelength, which is more absorbed, by the melanin in the ciliary epithelium. So the destruction is more targeted and there is less inflammation. There are various options that are available, but the cyclocryotherapy, I will just take a minute on the cyclocryotherapy because it is still relevant today in places where we may not have access to the diode laser cyclophotocoagulation, or where one may find it anatomically challenging to do a diode laser cyclophotocoagulation. The higher complication rate in this procedure, with a risk of almost 15% of phthisis bulbi even after one sitting, means that this is something that we have to take care of. One of the advantages is that if you have a painful blind eye, the corneal anesthesia that takes place in this process gives a better pain relief. So the cryoprobe 2.5 millimeter diameter is used. It is placed 1 to 1.5 millimeter behind the limbus, and for 1 minute the cryo is applied. The tip is allowed to thaw slowly. In all cycloablative procedures, we have to take informed consent, and preferably use retrobulbar anesthesia because this is a painful procedure. Avoid the 3 and 9 o'clock position, and because of the long posterior ciliary arteries and vessels. Once each quadrant, we must place about 5 to 6 spots, and they should not be more than a 180 degree, or preferably not more than a 3-quadrant treatment at one sitting. Post-operatively, patients need to be given the analgesics, antibiotics, steroids, which are tapered over 4 to 6 weeks. All preoperative anti-glaucoma medications are continued and tapered as per the clinical response. Excuse me, I think it's not. Yeah. So the laser cyclophotocoagulation can be applied transsclerally, transpupillary, or it can be endoscopic. The process is, so the transpupillary, so the procedure here again is similar. We use a G probe we titrate the energy starting from 2000 milliwatt, and we titrate it below or above in steps till we hear a soft audible pop. And then we have to come down to about 100 milliwatt below that. The spots are applied half a probe width apart and about 5 to 6 spots per quadrant. The transpupillary cyclophotocoagulation is possible only in certain situations where we are able to see the ciliary processes. For example, traumatic aniridia, advanced neovascular glaucoma, or where you have a large sector iridectomy. So the slit lamp delivery system using the Goldman 3 mirror and the argon green or the Nd:YAG laser is used, and the endpoint is blanching of the ciliary processes. Endoscopically mounted cyclophotocoagulation is done as an intraocular procedure. So you make a clear corneal 2 millimeter incision, either temporally or superiorly. You go right up to the pupillary margin. And when you are about a spot where you can visualize about 6 processes is when you can do the continuous wave laser. Again, the endpoint is blanching or shrinking, and we need to avoid overtreatment in the form of rupture, popping, or gas bubbles. The endoscopic cyclophotocoagulation, though usually done in aphakic or pseudophakic eyes, and can also be combined along with a phacoemulsification. But in certain situations, they have also done it in phakic eyes. This allows a more precise treatment and lower energy, minimizing collateral damage. It should be avoided in pseudoexfoliative eyes or inflammatory eye diseases. So although there are multiple studies which talk about the effect of diode laser cyclophotocoagulation in a severe glaucoma, to quote one which is representative, the diode laser ciliary ablation study shows that the success criteria, which is IOP reduction of more than 20%, is 72% at 1 year and 52% at 2 years. And the complications that were mostly encountered were a loss of vision, burns to the conjunctival surface in about 1/3, and a hypotony risk of 3.7%. Something of interest in recent years is the micropulse diode laser cyclophotocoagulation, which promises fewer risks and is found to be fairly equally effective. And this has, in this, we are giving a laser application in an on-off cycle. So the on cycle is 31.3%. So the off cycle is the time when the tissue, especially the joining tissue, is given some cooling off time. So because of this, the collateral damage is lesser, the risk of complications or hypotony is presumably lesser, and it has been offered as an alternative to a surgical option in selected patients. It improves both conventional and the uveoscleral outflow. And in this, the procedure is basically similar. The markings are done at 3 millimeter from the limbus, and the probe is then moved in a sweeping fashion in the superior and the inferior quadrant. So 80 seconds treatment superiorly and inferiorly, and a lower duty cycle in patients who need repeat or have a history of uveitis or inflammation. So in certain people who are intolerant to medications or have poor surgical candidates, elderly, have compliance issue, or are not keen on repeat surgery, this is an alternative that is being investigated and studied fairly a lot nowadays. And but we have to remember that the risk of hypotony and visual loss is certainly there. So we have to be very careful when advising this laser procedure for seeing eyes. In conclusion, cyclodestructive procedures are mainly used as an adjunctive technique. In the future, they do promise an alternative option, but need further study, especially with regard to safety profile and titrating the treatment options, and cost may continue to be a barrier. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Jasleen, for nicely summarizing the cyclodestructive procedure, including